Hi guys, how's it going? In this video we'll create our home home view, and we'll try to understand what this application is going to do essentially, and maybe talk about a little bit about how we're going to accomplish this. Now basically we've got our homestead set up, we've got our hosts, virtual hosts set up, we've got new Laravel application downloaded or cloned from GitHub, and then we've got basically the environment file has been set up, which we did last time. Basically a new encryption key, the new key for the sessions, and it's basically the salt for all the encryptions that we use. So we set up all this. In this video we'll create a home view. Now basically if you go here, get rid of this, go away, I don't need this. Okay, when we type our host name, which is Laravel mailer app.app 8000, it's listening at 8000 port. It spits out this view, which is Laravel 5. Now what this view essentially is, let's go to routes file. So essentially there's only a single route, which is route get. So http verb, get, post, put, delete, patch, all those verbs. So we've got a get request to the basically host, to the base route, we can say, and it takes a closure and it spits out this view called welcome. If you go to resources, views, if you've got your view, which is the welcome.play, it comes straight out of the box. Thanks to Laravel. Just a little bit of CSS, downloading ladder fonts, a little bit CSS, a single div, and a title Laravel 5. So a little bit of bootstrap, boilerplate. Well, we're gonna get rid of this. What we want is, we want a controller that's gonna listen to this route, and it's gonna be called home controller. And we're gonna fire index method on it, which will take care of every time someone types in the app host name, it will spit out a view that will give them a chance to either send, receive, or queue some of the emails in the future. Well, we're building a prototype. It's not going to be a working application, but it's not going to be too far from the working idea, because it'll work in the end. Just it'll miss out on some of the production ready capabilities. For example, what if I'll talk about that in a minute. So let's jump back to the terminal, and I'm gonna cd inside my code folder, and I'm gonna cd inside my app, like so. I'm gonna fire up my homestead machine, so I can type homestead resume or vagrant up, whichever way you've installed. If you're using Windows, or well, I'm using Mac, so I'm just using homestead resume, and because I installed differently. On Windows, I guess it works using vagrant up. Also, vagrant up works on Mac as well and Linux as well. But anyway, so I've got an alias set up for homestead resume that's called HR. So I'm just going to type HR, and it's going to fire up my machine, and it's booting a suspended machine. And once it's all up and running, I'm just going to refresh my page to see that it's listening on port 8000. So that's good. Now I'm just going to listen here, and it says it couldn't find home controller, because I've declared a home controller in the routes file, but it can't. There's no controller in reality. That's our next obvious step. So let's just go ahead, PA, which is again an alias to PHP Artisan. So if I type PA, it gives me all these commands. If I type PHP Artisan, it does the exact same thing. So in order to save me some typing, I created all this aliases one day. Well, PA make controller, I'm going to call it home controller, as we have. And it's not going to be a resourceful controller, just a basic controller. So just hit enter, and that's it. And hopefully we have a home controller for us to use. And here it is. Now, the very first thing I'm going to do is, even though we don't need to be explicit, but it's good to be explicit sometime. So I'm gonna fire in its in the constructor of this class. I'm gonna declare that everyone is welcome to use this app. There's no authentication fence around this application, so everyone can come and access it. So this middleware guest. Next thing I want to do is create an index view, index method, sorry, which returns a view. And let's just name this view mail.home. So by saying so, what we are trying to say, there's a mail folder, inside that there's a home view. Now we don't have a mail folder, so that's our next obvious step. Let's just create a new folder here called mail, and inside that we'll create a new file called home.blade.php, like so. So here's our mail view, mail folder, and there's a view. And let's just type hello for now and save all of these things, and let's see what it gives us. And it gives us hello. So I'm just gonna enlarge the text a little bit so everyone can see. So it gives us hello, which means we're on the right track, and hope you guys can see hello as well, and we're on the same page. You know, there's nothing exceptional so far that I have done. If you followed my previous videos where we managed to build a to-do app and a face mesh, a bit of a complex app, face mesh, but if you manage to understand those videos, you should be able to do up to this level pretty easily. There is nothing special so far. Okay, anyway, let's get rid of this and start working on our home view. So home view is essentially going to extend the welcome view. The welcome view is provided to us here by Laravel. So what we want to do is basically alter this welcome view a little bit. So what we want to do is essentially maybe we should just get rid of everything, and then we'll give it a little bit of bootstrap, we'll give it a little bit of jQuery. Yeah, that's a good idea. So let's just Control A and get rid of this, and I'm gonna use one of the bootstrap plugins. I think it's called if I go to remove packages, it should show me bootstrap Jade or something. Yeah, so bootstrap 3 snippets, bootstrap 3 Jade snippet. That's what I use for Sublime Text. If you're using Sublime Text, you can easily download these plugins. They're free to use and they're very good. So Twitter bootstrap snippet, Laravel bootstrapper snippet, a couple of bootstrap I've downloaded. So if I just type BS3 and template, it gives me a basic template which offers a boilerplate to start up really quickly. So I'm gonna use language, let's just say English, obviously, yeah. And I'm gonna leave the title to Laravel mailer app, and this is your CSS. It'll be downloaded when the page will be refreshed, and it'll be cached out in the memory, so it'll be faster. These are HTML5 shims, pardon me, and respond.js, just in case for the older browser, if the browser is Internet Explorer and they haven't really caught up with the HTML5 standards around the world. So these shims gonna fix some of the CSS, so our site will look exactly the same as it looks on Chrome or Safari or Opera. No, who uses Opera anyway? So in the body, we don't need this, but what we want to do is we want to yield our content, a content variable. As we're using Blade templating engine, so if we just say yield content, it's any template that uses this template, that content from that child template is gonna spit out in the master template right here. So anything between the bodies is gonna come right here. I'll show you how it works. I know you know, but yeah, it's always good because some people, they haven't done previous videos and they just they've just started my channel from this video, and it can be a little bit of pain to understand what the heck is going on. Well, so Laravel or any PHP framework, basically there's a templating engine, some sort of framework or library where we have a base file that uses same CSS for all our pages. And if you think about it for a second, on every page the only thing we are changing is the data, or we can, so by using these kind of templates and splitting them by extracting the common detail, this is like common to every page, so I can make my base pages extend this template, and that way if I want to make a change, for example my CSS file changes, I can just change it here, or I can just change it here, JavaScript or jQuery, and it'll reflect into all the other pages. So abstraction, which is so powerful. Now talking about our home page, so what we want to do here in the home page is we're going to extend the the welcome view. It extends the welcome view, and we will be calling it @section. Now we'll call it content because that's going to spit. I keep saying this word spit, it's not a good word. It's going to render everything that you type in here will be included in this view right here. So basically we're telling this is our template that extends the base template. This is a child template that extends the parent template, and the parent template is this, and everything that comes in that I'm going to mention here between the content variable, I want you to render this right here, yield content, and that's how it works. It's so simple. Now the next thing we want to do is so what we want to do, we want to create 3 buttons for 3 different tasks. We want to give a title, so it'll be simple bootstrap stuff now. Let's just say container or div dot. See, it's not understanding container because it's a blade templating engine, and the plugins don't work because they work in HTML or they work in JavaScript file, but this has .blade.php extension and the plugin is failing. It doesn't seem to work. Okay, so maybe I can get away with some other things. So div.container, and then just do this way. So we're going to give a class, sorry about that, and then I'm going to get a row. That's Bootstrap stuff. Though for those who don't know, Bootstrap is a CSS library pre-built for us to rapidly develop sites and rapidly develop prototypes and stuff. So this is a Bootstrap. We are hot linking this library. We are not downloading library locally. In our public folder we are hot linking, so when the page is accessed, this will be downloaded. Minified version 3.2 will be downloaded dynamically by the so this is another thing for the performance point of view. I would like to discuss with you that. Now we noticed that in our welcome page there was some local CSS written, what do you call that, inline CSS styles were written in the sheet. So when you send a request for the resource, a single request goes to the server, and server responds back with a single file. There is no external, except for the Lato phones. There was nothing external, I think. But all these links, these are external references to files located somewhere on netDNA bootstrap CDN, and this one as well, and this one is sitting on code.jQuery server. Now these servers are not our servers, they are not local servers. So our server, when a server gives the browser this response, our browser tries to parse all these elements and starts to build DOM, the document object model, which is a tree. HTML is your parent tag, and header is your child tag, and then it's got children and grandchildren, so that's a tree. And when it encounters a link, which is a reference to a file sitting on some other server, it's going to send another request to this server. This is going to resolve this server, and it's going to send a request to these servers to be able to access this resource. And this server is, now if your site is really fast, your speed will be still limited to the speed of these servers, because the HTML is rendered from top to bottom. So when it encounters this request, as soon as this request is fulfilled, it's going to continue parsing the rest of the output. Usually we don't see any difference. It happens in milliseconds, but I can reference like 1,000 different CSS from 1,000 different servers, and that's just going to kill our application, because well, this is something not related to our video, but since we have already started talking about it, it's always good to download the CSS, and as many CSS you have, you gulp them or grunt them and create a single minified file sitting locally in our public folder, which is again cached on our server. And that way you can really reduce the load and the network time, and send one single request to the server, which will have another request for CSS, another request for one single JavaScript file, and that's it. So in 3 requests and some other requests for the images, you can basically serve the response. It's first serve the request and send the response back to the users, which is performance driven thing. But anyway, so I'm not a fan of these external links, but it's always for bootstrapping something really quickly, using this kind of snippet. The purpose somebody creates these snippets and puts these links is every time someone uses these snippets and sends traffic back to these servers. So that's how I guess they make money, or advertisement and stuff. I don't know how it works, but someone has spent time building these snippets. He included these links rather than asking you to download locally, because they want you to go to these addresses. They want you to see these addresses. So there's a reason for everything to be there. But anyway, so like I said, single CSS file, single JavaScript file, and our content which changes from page to page will be rendered here. So that's the purpose of this. And now we've got a container and we've got a row, and let's just say we're gonna give the class which is a Bootstrap class. If you guys are not familiar with Bootstrap, just drop some comments and I'll do some videos about Bootstrap, the front-end framework, which has really revolutionized the way we used to create user interfaces. It's just so quick, and it works on every device like really nicely. So you just basically one CSS file to rule them all. All the devices will be taken care of, whether it's mobile or it's your 27-inch desktop or whatever. So yeah, so I'm gonna get a row, and let's just this is just really gonna be a really quick. Let's just give it a and I'm gonna call it what should we call it? Mailer app or something like that. I hate this plugin because if the blade templating engine doesn't work. So okay, let's just refresh it and see what it's giving us. So it's giving us a really big heading, and I'm just gonna go back to the original size, which is this. Just as you can see right here, I'm getting messages from people, but yeah, so I've got my heading here, which is a little bit too close to the top. Why don't we just give it a little bit of padding here, or margin? And so I'm just gonna say margin top. How about we give it a 200 pixel margin, and that should come right here, which is good. And what else we want to do? We want to create another div, or we can just copy this thing. And we can call it, so we're going to create 3 buttons here. Basically, we want to create is 3 buttons, 1, 2, and 3. Those 3 buttons will have access to 3 different controller methods. So one of the methods is going to be sending an email, a different view, and receiving an email, a different web client kind of view. And then we want to queue some of the emails which will be sent out as the time comes by. So basically, we're going to need a anchor tag here, but we have to split it into columns of 4, 4, 4 because it's 12 columns wide. So let's just call it div dot call sm4, and here we're going to create an anchor tag, that fires up a controller method. We don't have that controller right now, but we'll be creating it really soon. Let's just call it mail controller because our application, to keep it really simple, and let's just call it send mail because we're going to be sending an email. And I'm going to call it send mail, and let's just use a bootstrap class here. And the class is going to be btn default, and let's just say btn block and btn large. Let's keep it large for those people who can. And we've got the controller hasn't been defined yet, so it's giving us an error. Okay, for the sake of blade templating engine, we will go ahead and create a controller called mail controller. So mail controller, but we want a resourceful controller, so we have to give a flag here called resource. And that's just awesome about Laravel because it understands, and what resourceful controller does, anything to do with the resource. For example, it's gonna create a little bit of boilerplate here. It's gonna give you an index method, create, store, show, edit, update, and delete or destroy. So basically CRUD based application. Create, read, update, and delete. CRUD. And that's what you do with a resource. Either you create a resource, you read a resource, or you update a resource, or you basically delete a resource. So resourceful controller. And hopefully we can see something this time. No, because the send mail hasn't been defined yet. We don't have a custom method. So let's just call it index because that's for sure I know exists in our controller. And mail controller and index not defined. The reason it's not defined is where is my controller gone? So that's our mail controller. It has index, and I'm just gonna say this is not the problem though. If you want, this is not really a problem. The problem is the route. It hasn't been included in the route. So if I go to the routes file, and here if I create let's just say we have to define a resourceful route here so that that controller can be registered. So we will register our controller. We'll call it mail. The key will be mail, and we'll call it mail controller. And now this should be no problem. And like so. So we've got a little bit of a template here that, okay, that's my 100% of the view. Now, every time you create a controller, make sure if you're using them in the view, make sure to register them in the routes file, because the application needs to know which route this controller, you're using a controller in the view and you haven't registered it, it doesn't know which route it's listening to. Is it listening to home route? Is it listening to base route? Or is it listening to specific key? It just needs to know. So we've got our basic template, and we've got let's get rid of the mail controller for now. That's just for, so we're working on creating 3 buttons. So we're gonna copy this. We're gonna copy this bit, which is a 4-column wide, and just copy and paste another few times. And instead of changing, so right now we won't be worried about index or index, just leave them the same. We're gonna change the description here, receive, and we're gonna call it a queue. These are top 3 things I can imagine you want to do with the mail. You want to send an email, receive an email, you want to queue the mails for the future. So the server, if the server wants to send 1000 notifications in, let's just say, I don't know, next 15-20 minutes, you have to, the purpose of queuing is if the number of response we're sending on the mails we're sending exceeds 10,000 or 5,000 or the capacity of the server, we want to queue them. We want to queue them every 10 minutes, cycle them through. And let's just change these, make them a bit pretty. So, and let's just change it to info. And hopefully we should see buttons with different colors. And what we want to do is change the background a little bit, because you can choose any background you want. I've got a background here downloaded, which is also the sorry, I don't have here, so I'm gonna have to provide you with the background. So we are all of us use the same images and everything else. So here I'm gonna call so this view looks like it's okay. We can leave it as it is, and we'll come back to this in the future. For now, on this particular video, we managed to create this view. That's fine. And we can work on this bit a little bit, so we can improve the look of this bit. And let's just go ahead and get Font Awesome, because Font Awesome is going to put an icon for the mail. And I'm just going to type Font Awesome CDN, and I've got Bootstrap CDN. They're hosting Font Awesome, and just click this and copy, and come back here. And maybe I'm just gonna copy this. And change the URL to Bootstrap CDN, which is gonna be this one. Just change that and delete this bit here. So what this bit does is you leave it to the browser. It's going to check if your site is running HTTPS. It's going to download HTTPS version, because by leaving that thing, it can switch between HTTP or HTTPS, and that should download Font Awesome in the memory. Now we're gonna be creating. We'll write down a little bit of CSS here. The CSS is essentially going to be, we want to decorate our body tag. Basically the body, the whole body, we want to put an image. So let's just say background, and the background is going to be essentially a URL. We're going to create a folder called images, and we're going to call it background.jpg, whatever. And let's just do it fixed, center. And then the next rule is background size, which is going to be cover. I'm tired of this plugin. And let's just say font color. Font color is going to be E2. And then font weight is going to be 300. And height and width, let's just say it's going to be 100%, so it can fit into the screen. That should be enough. So let's just create a folder in our public directory. Let's create another directory called images. Inside the images, I'm gonna put this background.jpg. Although we can go to pexels.com. It's got so many different GIFs here, and just type here dark. You'll get some of the dark images if you want. You know, they all look beautiful. You can choose any one you prefer, because the user interface like really stands out if the background is a little bit dark or opaque or something like that. And the one that I used in my previous video, I can't seem to find it here. So what I'll do, I'll upload in the GitHub if you would like. Although I know I've got one in my so I can just I'll give it to you in the GitHub. I'll create a repo and upload this one, but you can use any dark image, it doesn't really matter. So basically I've got here, I've got the file. So I'm gonna go to code, and I was just playing around with this. So that's the file, and how about we just copy and paste this here, and we'll call it background.jpg, and let's just go here and refresh, and nothing happens. So the reason is that background.jpg images, we need to save it. I didn't save it. Now after saving, hopefully it should load, and it does load. So we've got a very basic user interface. It's got a button, and that fires a specific controller method, and which is nothing, I would say, which is nothing. So but anyway, try to use any background you can get your hands on, and try to reach to this level. And once you're at this level, in the next video we'll start working on our mail controller, which is the real where the real action begins. Here we're going to start working on how we're going to accomplish this task. So what essentially you're going to do is let's just talk that in the next video. This video has gotten really long. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.